Hi, everyone. You're listening to the Bold Little Minds MomCast, a podcast where we talk to incredible moms who share their unique journey to motherhood, practical tips, and some of our favorite low-prep activities so you can enjoy that hot cup of coffee. I'm your host, Krissy. I'm a mom of 2 boys. I'm glad you're here with us, so pop in your earbuds and let's have some fun. Thank you so much for listening to the Bold Little Minds MomCast. My name is Krissy. I am so excited that you're here with me today. And happy first week of September. I know for a lot of you that this means back to school for your kids. Maybe they've already been back for a few weeks, or maybe they're just getting started. But either way, I don't know about you, but there has been a lot of intense emotions lately. My kids aren't even in school, but it's still a lot for us right now. I don't know if it's the changing of the seasons or if there's something celestial happening, but there's gotta be something going on to explain these emotions and mood swings and changes and scream crying and everything, because it can't just be teeth and it can't just be these developmental leaps that I think my kids are going through. It's really wild. It's so crazy to see my 3-year-old. He's becoming this 3.5-year-old, which is like every half year at this age, I feel like is so different than the one before. He's becoming a lot more empathetic. He's becoming a lot more nurturing and caring. He's becoming aware of other people and how he interacts with other people. Like now, sometimes when I yell at him, instead of laughing at me, he cries. And oh my gosh, that breaks my heart. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm a yelling mom. I'm not yelling at him all the time, but you know how it is. There are some really tough days and some really intense behaviors that if you find yourself dysregulated, wow, you can really end up as the yelling mom real fast. And it's not my most proudest moments, but I'm not ashamed of them because I'm a human and I know that that's what's going to happen. And I know that the best thing that you can do with a child is recognize when you have those moments and actively seek repair. Those are the most important pieces that when you're having these tough moments with kids is repairing afterwards when you lose your cool, because you can't be perfect 100% of the time. You can't be this gentle parent that you want to be all the time. It's just not realistic and not kind to yourself. So give yourself some grace and make sure you're actively looking for those repair opportunities with your children if you're finding that you are doing things that you're not proud of. I know I am a lot more this week than I ever thought I would be. This one week has just been crazy. We have been having some really, really late nights where my 3-year-old isn't going to bed till like 11, and then really, really early wake ups. I'm having my 21-month-old last night woke up at 3:15, and that's not the first day this week where we had that. And he went back to sleep, of course, but then it's so disjointed and so disrupted. And when you're already dysregulated and feeling tired, then it makes it even more difficult to be the mom you want to be and the person you want to be. So be gentle with yourself. Make sure you're finding those moments for some self-care, even though I know that my self-care is not really a thing right now this week. It's been just crazy. But here I am. I got a haircut today. I found some time, right? The self-care doesn't have to happen every single day, but find a moment in your week maybe where you can do that. So I got my haircut. I went and got a coffee, and I am feeling like a new woman, truly. So I hope that you are able to find a moment of peace for yourself this crazy week as well. One thing that's really helped me through all these intense moments is taking some moments of mindfulness. And today's episode with Blair, she talks a lot about mindfulness, and not in this really intense, you have to really build this into your day way, but in a way that is, let's find ways to incorporate mindfulness into your daily life and have these moments of just movement and clarity and reflection, or just breathing. And she gives some really great tips and techniques for doing that. Blair is a maternal health occupational therapist, and she's very passionate about bringing occupational therapy and mindfulness and movement to women in pregnancy and beyond through motherhood. Her tagline is preparing you for birth and the balance of motherhood, and she couldn't have picked a more accurate tagline. It really describes her and her mission to a T. I'm really amazed by Blair and the work that she's doing for the motherhood community. Check out her page for more ideas on how you can make movement and mindfulness a part of your daily life to really help you reconnect with who you are and who you want to be. I really hope that you enjoy today's episode and that your week has not been as crazy as mine, but if it is, I hope that you are finding some moments of peace, and I hope that you're able to enjoy this changing in seasons as we're moving forward. Thank you so much for listening, and let me know what you think. Welcome to the Bold Little Minds MomCast. My name is Krissy. I am a stay-at-home mom to 2 young boys, and I am honored to be here today with Blair, who is a stay-at-home mom to 2 young kids, ages 3 and 1. She is also an occupational therapist, a yoga teacher, and passionate about supporting moms during pregnancy and beyond. Thank you so much for being here with me today, Blair.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited for this opportunity.
Your page is it's just so fun to follow because you're so real about
Hmm.
motherhood, and you have these really real moments, but you also have these really supportive moments and like the yes, me too, thank you, somebody notices that. It's just really fun to be watching.
That's good to hear. I think it's been hard to figure out how to show up in the social media space
Hmm.
because there's so much like, do this or this is the best, or like so much of that where I feel like there isn't enough of this is what we're doing today and it's okay that we're watching TV. And yeah, just finding that balance. So I'm trying to really show parents that it's okay to do X, Y, and Z and like find your own way.
I love that. Yes. I feel like if you're showing up authentically about who you are, your audience will find you, people will find you, and people who relate to you. Everyone else isn't your people anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
So tell me about your journey to motherhood. Who were you before being a mom, and what led you to where you are now?
I don't even remember life before being a mom. I don't know if you feel that way too. For the longest time, I've always wanted to be a mom. It's something that for me always felt like it sounds so cheesy, but my true calling. I love being an occupational therapist. I love being a yoga teacher. I love all my different roles that I have within my family and my friends. But I always just longed to be a mom. And my husband and I got married in COVID. So we like everything's COVID now. So like the height of COVID, we canceled our wedding, had a backyard wedding, and everyone was like, just push it back, push it back. I was like, no, I wanna have kids. Like I want to start that part of my life now. When we got pregnant with our son, people thought I was crazy. It was like from the very first symptom of like, oh, I feel really dizzy. This is awesome.
Yep.
Like I was like, things are happening. And I think that's just my personality and my outlook on things from pregnancy and beyond. And I know that doesn't drive with everyone, but it's just, I've always been like strangely optimistic and excited. And I feel like just the whole journey of becoming a mom for me, luckily, was pretty smooth with my first
Right.
pregnancy.
You were an occupational therapist, but in a different realm. So right now you are
Oh, yeah.
really looking into supporting moms, but you did other things before that.
Yeah. So before kids, I was like super gung ho about neuro and birth to three pediatrics. So very different scopes. But I love, love, love my first passion was spinal cord injury and working with that very complex
Whoa.
neurological population. Very different from what I do now. So I love that doing inpatient rehab with that population. And I always just love the part of it that's so empathetic and getting to really see someone through that journey. And I vividly remember working with a patient who was trying to problem solve of her mothering occupation. She was trying to figure out now in a wheelchair how to get to a crib and how to get her baby to the changing station. And I remember thinking in that moment, I got the chills thinking about it, that I was like, there's got to be a better way. And I just realized like, I want to help her and I want to figure out how to make mothering, which is such a challenging occupation as is, and then throwing in a traumatic spinal cord injury. I think in that moment, it was almost a little glimmer of what was to come of me wanting to really help other mothers.
Wow, that must have been really amazing, and especially what a pivotal moment for you to really be able to point to
Mhm.
that from going from one passion and maybe not bridging right away, but eventually bridging to this
Mhm.
other passion. Whoa.
Yeah, definitely.
I am like obsessed with occupational therapy right now. I think it's such a underutilized therapy where everybody can benefit from it, not just necessarily people that have needs. We all have these needs. So it's really
Yeah.
like wild to be learning about all of this. How have
Yeah.
you seen OT coming through in your parenting in so many ways?
I
That's a
I
huge
truly
question.
I know I truly can't separate it. And a lot of people ask like, is it hard that you can't separate it, or like is it annoying that you can't separate it? And
Mhm.
for me, I think it's the most wonderful thing because I think it also helps me be more mindful. And that's something that I really like talk a lot about in general with like my parenting style. And I feel like with occupational therapy, a big thing we do is task analysis. And we break down what we're doing and look at how we do it from a cognitive standpoint, a physical standpoint, an emotional, psychosocial, like you can't separate those things. That's what makes up a person.
Right.
So for me with mothering, it's like when I see my kids trying to learn a task, my brain is instantly all over the place of like, he's trying to get his pants on, and I'm thinking of everything that's happening to make that happen, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Where I don't know if people normally think like that, but I think of how can I take apart the task and then work on it in play and work on it in the functional skill. And for me, that's really exciting. It doesn't feel like overwhelming. It's just like I just can't separate the two things.
Right. What a benefit that is to have. It's something I
I
feel
think
like
it's fun.
definitely.
Yeah, my husband loves it. He always says like he defers to me with a lot of parenting things with that, especially with like the sensory interventions and then the functional tasks, which is everything we do. So even with helping our children learn how to use utensils, like that's such an OT thing that comes to mind. But just really working on their independence and things that they want to do or need to do is like what we do all day, every day. In like a fun way, not in like a work way.
Oh, sure. Definitely. I think there's a lot of that overlap, right? When you know how to do it through play, then it can be just built in anyway. I was a math teacher, so we do so many, we count everything. We look for shapes everywhere. So it's just
Yeah.
whatever your background might be, it just comes naturally to you.
Yes. Yes. Learning is everywhere. It really is.
It really is. So tell me about your experience being pregnant with being an OT, right? Because there's so much that we do as a pregnant person that is not good for you, that I'm sure that you maybe gave advice to patients in the past, or that you're like, nope, this is how it's going to be.
Yeah, that was a big thing. I think in my first pregnancy, I suddenly learned your eyes are just totally open to a whole new experience. And I think I had such a new appreciation for what women go through. And I think until you go through it, in my experience, like you don't know what you don't know until you know it, is what I say. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just you don't know, and that's okay. So I feel like when I was going through my first pregnancy, I suddenly was like, oh, like this is what X, Y, and Z feels like. And I also understand why it's hard. And it's easier. Like even now, I have mother's thumb, and it's very painful. And I love sharing tips and tricks for people on what works for me because it really does help. But still, it's like in the moment, there's certain things that have to get done. And maybe you have to bend or lift or twist a certain way that isn't optimal. It's not how I would teach a patient. But also, I'm like, you know, if it needs to get done, I try to teach people ways that actually are realistic. And I think now after going through, so I've had 2 pregnancies, full term, and a miscarriage. And I think after going through these experiences, I just have a totally different appreciation for what's actually practical, helpful advice, I think, and what's advice that you're like, man.
Right. I know. I always say like, what's going to be hard, but you have no idea what it's like, what hard actually means until you're in it.
And everyone's experience is different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now tell me about so this was your pregnancy experience, but what about after birth? I know you had 2 very different birth experiences. So tell me about that.
Yeah, totally different. Yeah. So my first was a C-section. He was a planned C-section because he was breech.
Okay.
And I tried everything to turn him. We found out so late he was breech at 36 weeks.
Wow.
So, yeah.
You might have flipped then, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, he must have, because there was a really big movement. There was one night we were listening to music in bed, and suddenly my stomach was like all over. And we're like, that's when he turned.
Yep.
So that was a planned C-section experience, but it was really hard mentally and emotionally for me because that whole pregnancy, I did so much like preparation and training for unmedicated experience that I was borderline looking at home birth options and like a wildly different outcome. And it's also really hard because people, they think it's helpful to say like, oh, but you have your healthy baby. Like, don't worry about how you got there. You got there, which I understand. Like, yes, of course I'm holding my healthy baby, but I think that whole experience is important. And I think it's really important to acknowledge it and validate those feelings of you have a healthy baby and you're healthy and that's amazing, but I'm sorry you didn't get that experience you wanted. So I think that was really eye-opening for me and something I hope to pass on and support other women, that like giving them that space to grieve while also feeling gratitude for what has gone right, if that makes sense.
100%. Absolutely. We have so
Yeah.
many complex feelings anyway in motherhood, but
Mhm.
pregnancy and birth, it's something that you dream about. And I have friends who have had C-sections that have similar experiences where you're grieving and maybe will always feel this loss, even though of course you're overjoyed to have healthy babies and be healthy
Yeah.
post-pregnancy, but that memory isn't there and your experience isn't what you wanted or hoped or dreamed of. And that's big.
Yeah. It's different. And I think another thing that starts in my mind with pregnancy and just snowballs in a way is also that feeling of lack of control. So I think in pregnancy, our bodies are changing, our hormones, like our minds, like everything is changing. And we can control what we can control, but a lot is out of our control.
Right.
And I think that then you plan for this birth experience. And if that doesn't go the way that you had hoped, then you have postpartum, which is just a wild ride. You don't really know what's going to happen. So I think it's just a lot that women should be better prepared and better supported for that transition.
I agree. Yeah, and one of the tips that I got from somebody I know who had a C-section was, sure, you're learning about unmedicated birth, you're learning about postpartum, you're learning about all these things. Learn about a C-section. Learn about
Yes.
those and have a plan for what you might want, and shared some unexpected experiences with me from that. So that was great to be
Yeah.
prepared in a way. You're not prepared for any of it, but to at least
Mm-hmm.
have some knowledge.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that's why I offer on my website just as a freebie, like a vaginal birth wish list, and I call it a wish list, and then a C
Right.
section wish list. And I encourage people to explore both because when you go into a C section, as long as it's semi plans or not so rushed or emergent, that there's a lot that you really do have control over. Like people were surprised in my C section, I was able to, I think also it was helpful. I am in the medical profession and felt very comfortable talking to the nurses and doctors. But I was able to have my chest completely free, like no leads were on my chest, so I could do skin to skin. The pulse ox that measures your oxygen in your blood was on my toe. I asked for that. They played whatever music I wanted. It was so beautiful. My husband was able to cut the cord, like certain things like that that still made it feel special.
Right.
So there's a lot you can do still. And I think a lot of people aren't aware of that. They feel like once they're in that situation, it's like, got to pass it off to the doctors. And it's not always the case.
Right. It doesn't have to be 100% medical. It still is about you as a person and your bond with your new baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's great. Definitely look for that resource if you know or
Yeah.
have any friends who are expecting. Just subtly pass that on, and that will.
Yes. Yes. It's helpful. And then my second birth experience was wildly different. So that whole birth, I still was like, God, I really want a VBAC. And I did so much research, which I think a lot of people, which I totally respect, they say they just want to like leave it up to fate and like do whatever their body's going to do and trust the professionals, which I think if that feels comfortable and empowering, then do that. For me, I wanted to know like anything and anything that could happen. And I think that was helpful. So in the moment, I knew, or I guess right before I knew, like there was a chance of uterine rupture, but what actually is that chance and what would warning signs be? And I talked about that with my medical team because I wanted to be like fully prepared. And ultimately, I felt like knowledge was so powerful when I was able to have an unmedicated VBAC and it was in the hospital and it was just like everything I had dreamed about from the time I became pregnant with my first.
That's amazing that you were able to have that experience. And kudos to you for
Thank
doing the
you.
research. There's so much that the doctors don't have enough time with us to really give
Mm-hmm.
us all this information. So going in with
Yeah.
the background information is really important.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too. And I think there's no right way to do it. I think some people are shocked when people opt for a repeat cesarean. And I always think and say, like, if that feels empowering and the right choice for you, that's fine. Like not only like that's okay, but that's great. Like,
Right.
that's great. So yeah, I think my experiences were very positive. I feel very grateful, but ultimately I just want to be able to support other women and just feeling confident in their experiences, their choices, and in those like feeling empowered with their choices.
Totally agree. Amazing. I'm so glad you're doing that. Now,
Thank you.
you tell me about your experience going from one child to 2 on top of everything else that you were researching and planning and doing. That's a whole other thing that you now have to navigate after your first child.
Yeah, totally. From the second we had our firstborn, I don't know if other people are like this. We got home and I was like, I can't wait to have another. Like I've always felt like I was like, I want to have multiple kids. Like I was like, I don't feel like our family is like, I feel like we are starting our family, but we're nowhere near complete. It's like that feeling.
Sure.
And my husband's like, whoa, one at a time. Like, let's just like get you healed from a major abdominal surgery.
Right.
Let's like figure out like newborn life. But I think once we brought home our daughter, and we didn't know the genders of either of them too. So that was like such a whirlwind. Yeah. So when we brought her home, and it was so many feelings of, oh my gosh, I had an unmedicated feedback. Oh my gosh, it's a girl. And oh my gosh, we have 2 kids. So I feel like that was almost the biggest thing for me. I think like mentally and emotionally with the 1 to 2 was just like processing that whole experience. And then beyond that, I feel very grateful to say that it was a very smooth transition. And I'm not sure if it's my daughter, so she was a newborn, her temperament is so mellow. Like I didn't know something was wrong with her. So again, I feel like almost guilty saying that. I know that's not everyone's experience, but it was really helpful because I could give my toddler attention while she would just sleep next to us.
Right.
And I felt like, I don't know, I felt like it was smooth, and I tried to also accept all the help whenever people offered it, which again is something I know isn't for everyone. But for me, if someone is like, hey, do you want me to drop off lunch? Yep. Like I don't ask them, are you sure? Like, yeah, if you're offering, you're offering. And I think that helped make the transition smoother for sure.
That's great. Wow. Yeah. What a great support system and way to lean into that. That's not everyone has that. That's amazing.
No, yeah, I feel really, really grateful. And I think one of the most challenging parts though with the 1 to 2 transition is not being able to hold your toddler and really give them that like really focused one-on-one attention. Yeah. And I feel like there were days that I would want to pick him up and rock him before bed or do certain things. And I would, and almost immediately I was like, oh, physically, this is not what I should be doing right now. But then it's hard because he doesn't understand it. He was just over 2. And that was really challenging, like wanting to be everything for everyone.
That is the hardest. And one thing I wasn't prepared for was how old my baby would feel at that point, right? He is not my baby anymore. I have another baby. And now all of a sudden you're this like kid.
So that was very emotional. And like, yeah, like he would sing to our daughter or like just do little things. And I was like, oh my God, like it's just a whole, like everything just changed overnight kind of feeling.
Yeah. That coming home is just your whole world gets rocked upside down. What kinds of things did you do ahead of time with your toddler to prepare?
Oh, that's a great question. I actually love doing all this stuff. So we read a lot of books. One of our favorite ones was How to Be a Big Brother, but we also read a book we loved, and it's called You Were the First. And it talks I have the chills again. It's really beautiful because it's not just talking. It's not, the focus isn't on like, new baby's going to do this, new baby's going to need that. The focus is like, you were the first to make us laugh, and you were the first to sleep in the bassinet. And he loved that. And then as we read it, we would show him pictures. But that was really helpful, I think, in preparing him and also in preparing us. The other thing we did a lot of is we had a baby doll, and we didn't force it. We just had it like mixed in with his toys and a little baby carrier. And we had him, whenever he wanted, we like would say like, do you want to try it? And he was so into it. And he would wear it around, and we would just encourage like, oh, like pat baby's back, like kind of translate, or not like transfer the learning from the book to real life. So that was really helpful, I think, in just starting to get that like gentle empathy. And then we also had him come to whatever appointments he could. So that was helpful, I think, too. Again, I think for me also, that we would go to appointments and he was able to hold the Doppler on my belly and listen to baby, which was really helpful. And then just talking realistically about baby's coming. This is where baby's going to sleep, and just like trying to walk through that. And then the number one biggest tip I would give to any parents welcoming a new baby, this is my favorite, is narrate what your bigger child is doing to the baby. And yes, of course, the baby doesn't know what is going on. The baby can't hear. But our son would be walking outside and he'd pick up a stick. And I would say, wow, did you see he just picked up that stick? And he would turn around with the biggest smile. And I would say, show baby, show baby. And he would hold it up. And just that, I think, created more of a bond than a competition.
Mm-hmm.
And more of like, he was able to show things off, even if it was like, look, he's eating ice cream, like anything. It didn't have to be nothing elaborate, but that just watching the magic of that tip unfold was like, I was mind blown.
That's the sweetest. I love that. And the reading really is so impactful. We read the same Big Brother book every night. And now anytime I have a friend who's expecting, I send them the Big Brother, the Big Sister book. Yeah. And we would read it. And instead of saying baby, we would try on all the different names to see how they felt that we were throwing around. And the name that we ended up choosing, we'd only used a couple times with the book, but he remembered it. And it just like was like such like a sweet moment when he said his name, and we're like, oh my gosh, I guess we did pick the right one, because it's so new in those first few days. But I just love
that is so sweet.
Right?
Oh, I love that.
Right, it brings back all the feels, right? So you mentioned earlier something about mindful parenting and how that is coming into your parenting. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, I was thinking about it actually today. I was having just a hard time. My little one who's sick right now was just crawling all over me. And in that moment, I felt I think we all know that feeling, like so touched out. I'm like, I just need a minute, but I can't have a minute. I have a dog who needs to be walked and 2 kids. So in that moment, I actually use strategies that I teach my son. So we actually have this weighted turtle, and I had a comfortable seat. I like sat on the couch. I put the turtle over my lap, and literally just that helped me be then more present and mindful. And I think like mindfulness to some people feels very overwhelming. And I think what I want to teach people is it can be as simple as that, as just feeling more present and also recognizing what you need when you need it. So I think in that moment, it was like, I can't change this. This is what's happening. She's sick and she needs me. So what can I do to meet my needs? And for me, that deep pressure proprioception from the weighted turtle helped me feel calm so that then I could be more present for them. And it really works, which is like, it seems so simple, but it can be so simple. So I think for me, mindful parenting isn't so much of, I think what you see sometimes of these like beautiful quotes, like, yes, of course it can be that, but I think it also can be just recognizing what you need in the moment, meeting that need so that you can then feel more present and more connected to what's happening around you.
Yes, I agree. I try to build in these little mindful breaks in my day. Like when I'm filling my water bottle, I will take the minute to breathe or just the few seconds. I'm doing that a few times a day anyway. And like, where am I at? But also in those moments where you're freaking out and crawling out of your skin, like I try to think, what is one thing I can remove from this situation, right? I can't get this baby's hand out of my shirt, but without him screaming, but I can turn the music off. And that helps, right? Just for me, taking something away is really helpful, or getting up and washing my face or even washing my hands is really helpful for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And those little things make a difference. Like I notice if my toddler is really, really going for it, really having a challenging moment, and we just step outside, like let's just change the environment. And I notice that then we're able to think, that's another thing that I love to do, is just get outside, and then we'll say, like, he'll almost instantly calm down. And then I can say, like, what do you hear? What do you see? And just those little moments, those little like phrases to help bring you back to the present moment. It's not just helpful for them, but it's so helpful for us. So I think just finding ways in the mundane routine to really feel connected to what's around you and what's happening is just, it's so helpful in feeling more calm and feeling more grounded.
Yeah. The getting outside thing is so tricky for me right now because my 3-year-old is in his anti-clothes phase. And of course,
Oh
so
yeah.
my 20-month-old is too, because they're the same person in that way. And like the other day, I hadn't been out in a couple days, really getting out. We've gone out, but I didn't get for a walk or anything. And he just wouldn't put pants on. And I finally said, I just want to go outside. Like, that's all. I just want to go for a walk. And I got up and did my face washing and my hand washing, and like just kind of like had some cool water on my body. Like, and I said, you don't actually need to go for a walk to meet this need. Like, it's not the walk that you are. Of course, I did want to, because I was hoping to see my neighbors and talk to them for a minute. But just the act of going out in the back deck, they don't need pants to go out in the backyard. We could go do that. And that really made a difference, reframing it. So it's not always the break that you want, but look for what you can access. That's been helpful.
Absolutely. And what you can control too. Like,
Right.
I think that's such a good shift. Like, it doesn't have to be an elaborate plan. I don't know, like whatever is accessible and smoother, like go for it. And getting outside can really be just opening the door and like sticking your head out and just taking a deep breath.
Right. What a good point. Yes. Just standing
Yeah.
outside by myself for a second. Like, they'll be fine. It
Yes.
doesn't matter. I
Yes.
love that.
I do that a lot. I open the door and then my little one crawls after me, and my toddler, same thing, like half naked, runs out and he's like, we're going to be outside. I'm like, okay, sure. And we just, move whatever we're doing out there. And I think, yeah, I think the spontaneity of it too just helps a lot for me, like that things aren't so routine and planned, and it helps them. It really does.
Right. It really does. You see a huge mood shift like the second the air hits. So I love that. Just go outside by yourself.
Yeah.
They'll come or they
Yeah.
won't. And it will
Yes.
be fine.
Yep.
So you are working to make mindfulness more accessible to moms through some of your new developments. Can you tell me about what you're working on?
Yeah. So I'm trying to also make the shift. I think a lot of people think of mindfulness and meditation, they kind of group it, which is very intimidating for people. So I'm really trying to help people focus on mindful movement, which is my fun way of saying yoga moves, but also just mindful movement in your daily life. So anytime you go to pick up your child, what are you doing? What's your body telling you? Is something hurting? And how can we improve that? And just ways to feel more grounded and connected in your daily life. And also then coupling that with the traditional mindfulness aspect of what can we do during our routines, like you said, filling your water. I love that. So if you're doing laundry, what can you do? Is it maybe that you take a second just to hold that warm towel, or you help your little ones help you with the laundry and it becomes maybe an activity? Or I think laundry is always helpful. But with vacuuming, like I love vacuuming because I love seeing the lines on the carpet, and just taking the extra second to notice and appreciate some of those things that make you feel like, I think that's a big part of mindfulness that people miss.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, you don't need to have a yoga practice. You don't need to do yoga to benefit from doing a quick cat cow or something like that. So yeah, getting your
Yes.
head out of, I have to be sitting in a quiet room to do my meditation, to be mindful is really a big
Yes,
shift
like
for a
you
lot.
can do it anywhere. The other day during my toddler was getting ready for nap time, my baby crawls all over his room. He loves it, or she loves it. And I just laid on the floor and closed my eyes and did a nice goalpost stretch. And I just took a few deep breaths. And I'm like, that's what I want to show parents, is that is mindfulness, and that's being gentle with your body. And I'm hoping that, so I'm working on creating some recorded programs for my website so people can then access them whenever works for them. And I'm going to try to keep them very short and sweet, like mostly 10 minutes and under, maybe 15 minutes. So there's going to be different things for toddler yoga, for busy parents, for mommy and me yoga. So all of those things, but really with very accessible movements in them. And I'm really excited to work. I'm going to do some mindfulness meditations, like guided meditations, that maybe if you're just having a tough day and you have 5 minutes, you play it, and it's just some affirmations or some gentle reminders to help you feel good and calm during your day when you're having a hard time.
That's so important, because like we have nobody to turn to when we're in the thick of it. You can't pick up your phone and text or call somebody necessarily, but you could pop it in your earbud and listen to something, because that's not necessarily a two-way engagement. So that's
Yeah,
such a great
exactly.
option. I
Yeah.
love that. Now, one thing that you have around you is this big network of friends and family who are having kids at the same time with you. So you have
Hmm.
all of these unique experiences of seeing different parenting styles. And I'm sure that that's really helped you reaffirm how powerful mindfulness is and things like that. Can you tell me about that experience of parenting with so many people at the same time?
Yeah, I think it's really helpful and also can be really challenging. And I think that especially now, I think now that my toddler's 3, we just hit more of like a challenging period. And I think that friends whose children are younger and maybe haven't quite gotten there yet, it's hard to not feel, even if they're my closest, dearest friends that I love, it's hard not to feel that judgment. But then at the same time, there's some friends who will be like, wow, that was interesting how you did that. I'm going to like keep that in my back pocket for later. So I think ultimately it's really cool to parent with people that you love and trust and feel like you can talk to about those things. And also it's just a reminder that the way you parent is going to be different from the person next to you or even your very closest friend because you're different and your children are different. So I think that's been a really important message for me of like, yes, this works for someone and I'm trying it and it's not working for us. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that it's not a good technique or it's not going to work for someone else. And I think that's lesson to learn in general that every situation's different. And I think that's been like very powerful to see.
Really, it's funny because everybody has different challenges. All kids have, and you don't know what people have
Mm-hmm.
tried. You don't know what they're working on. So it irks me the most when I'm talking about a challenge I'm having and somebody gives me an obvious solution. Like, you don't think I've tried that? This is an
Yes.
extreme, but my kids are climbers and they were climbing at my dad's house and he goes, well, maybe just tell them not to climb.
You're like, oh,
Oh, thanks for that gem. I'll definitely be working on that one with them. But yeah, it just
yeah.
goes to show like you've no idea what the other person's going through. So instead of judging what they're going through, like my sister and I, we just send each other that melty face emoji all the time. Like, yep,
Yes.
like good luck, solidarity.
Yep. That's how my sister and I are too. And she'll say, like, yes, she'll be like, I've been there. It's okay. It's normal. I'm like, okay, thank you. I just needed to hear that. I think that's been one of the most challenging things though in general. And I think we've got really wonderful families that are very supportive.
Mm.
But to be honest, I think that when you're sitting around the dinner table and something comes up and someone says like, oh, hey, just like you said, like, have you tried this? Have you tried that? And it's hard not to get that like, ugh, like not to feel that. And I think ultimately I try to remember like they're trying to help. They don't know what you've been through. And I think also that mentality, it helps feeling mindful in those moments. And I also learned that it's okay to say like, that's not working, but thank you. Like it's okay to shut it down if that's protecting your mental health and the
Right.
space that you need right now.
Right. Yeah. We'll sometimes say to each other things like, I'm not looking for suggestions, but thank you. I just want to vent.
Yes. Yes. I think I've also, while parenting with other friends and siblings very closely, I think I've also learned how to approach that to say sometimes like, do you want advice or do you just want me to listen? And I think that's been helpful too, because sometimes someone tells you something and you're like, oh, try this, try that. And sometimes you're I just want to get it out. I don't want to fix it. I just want someone to listen.
Agreed. Yes. That's I think the key to a successful friendship is being able to say that to somebody.
Yeah, totally.
So one of the things that I really like to do is share our go-to activities, right? To help support other moms in their
Mm-hmm.
parenting, to get through a hard time. We all need that like one thing that you can go to when you just need to maybe go to the bathroom or make a cup of coffee or just get the kids out of your hair so you can have that mindful moment. What is your go-to low prep easy activity that you can share with our friends here listening today?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of my favorite activities that I feel like anyone can do anywhere as long as there is a kitchen is go in the kitchen, grab a few bowls, preferably not glass, just so you're not worried. So, like stainless steel ones make great noises that the kids love. And you can grab a few spoons, or if you want to get fancy, you can grab some ladles and just let them go crazy with that. They don't even need an object to transfer. So, if you want to like take it up a notch, You can then grab anything. Like we like doing, I'm looking at our little craft table. We like doing like large pom-poms.
Me
So we just
too.
keep they're so helpful that you can do so many things with them. So you can just do that. And for my toddler, he loves scooping the pom poms and putting them in and out of containers like cups.
Yep.
And then my little one, if you put the pom poms in a whisk, it's so good to take them out and it'll keep her so busy. And then obviously OT wise, it works on that pincer grasp and it works on so many different other things that I won't get too nerdy, but it's a really good activity. And I have noticed that even if we're on vacation and we're like, oh, they don't even want the toys that we packed, we just go in the kitchen and we grab a few bowls, even like plastic containers, and whatever we can find, you just put in that. And even if you go outside and collect sticks or leaves, and then that's what they're transferring. Like it's just such a low prep activity that has so many possibilities.
That's one of my favorites too, especially if they have a lid. If you have a lid that makes, and we save I'm a hoarder for like recycling. I have so many berry containers. I have this cupcake container that's survived for a long time now. And what's the other thing? Any to-go container. And they put them in there. But like we just went to a friend's house and that's what I brought was the giant pom-poms and a bunch of kitchen tools because I knew that they would have fun with that. Right. And one of my favorite things to do with that too is I keep a bucket of all the random toys that don't necessarily have a home, like the figures or the pieces that go to like a ring stacker that's missing. And then that becomes my loose parts. And that can become a soup too, right? Mixing all of those things.
Yes. Like it doesn't have to be complicated. And if it's nice out, if it's like warmer, then what we did like yesterday is we just put ice cubes in a bowl, just one little bowl and ice cubes. That's it. And they both played for so long. And my toddler ended up seeing how he could throw them to break them into many little pieces. And then my baby was trying to pick up the pieces. And it's so simple. And for us, we're like, oh, is that enough to keep them busy? Just try it. Just try it and see. You never know. Usually, yes.
It was so funny that you posted about the ice today because the exact same thing happened to me at the park today. We were just out. I had a picnic blanket. I had a nice coffee and it was gone and we were running around and I turned around and the 20-month-old had dumped out all the ice and was like putting it back in and letting it melt. And I was like, yes, a sensory bin from a nice coffee. This is the best.
Yes, like it's free, it's easy, it's pretty easy to clean up. It's just water.
Right? Yeah, it made difference to me. But wow, like I didn't have to bring anything, and I got to drink a coffee. Like this is a win-win-win. This was amazing.
That's so awesome. And when you're in nature, there's so much to do too. I was thinking with fall coming up, another super easy low prep activity is when you just go for a walk and let them touch whatever they see, like bushes. And obviously, I make sure first there's no poison ivy or anything. But I let them touch it. And then as the leaves get crunchy, we'll also play with those and just talk about the changing seasons. So then it's like a cool activity that way. But another one good for fall coming up.
Right. I usually let them pick like one leaf. And that's like a special thing for them when we're on a walk. Like you can pick one leaf while we're out. And like today it was a big hosta leaf, like whatever. It wasn't mine. It was in public, but that hosta didn't need that one leaf. It was fine. And it was like the coolest thing. Like I have my leaf.
It's awesome. I love that. It makes it so special. And it also is like just choosing one. Like I don't know, it's a good lesson too, like a bigger lesson in this crazy world.
Yes, we do that at Home Depot too. They get to pick out a color. So we go to the paint and like, what's your color going to be today? And then they have it and they look at it on the way home. And
I love that.
It's like they just got a prize. Like it might as well have bought them like $100 toy.
Yeah. I'm totally going to do that. Thank you. That's such a good idea.
Absolutely. Do it. So as moms, we have a lot of knowledge. We have a lot of experiences that we use once, maybe twice, maybe a few times, but then it fizzles away because again, we're not really sharing them with all of our friends because everybody parents differently. Everyone has a different experience. So sticky. But this is a really good opportunity for us to feel like experts and share some of that knowledge. So I have a question from Reddit that I would love to get your take on. And I think you have some interesting background on this. So the question is, our 14-month-old started screaming, crying, twisting, turning, and pulling away during diaper changes. No matter what we do, at least half the time it turns into a huge battle that he needs settled after. Is it too early to potty train? And is this normal? He never used to mind it.
I love this. Okay, so a first more traditional response that I would say is to try at 14 months a standing change. So if your baby is able to stand, even with support, you can then do literally you like put the diaper on and just strap it on. It might not be perfect. It's usually great. You also at that age can usually change to more of like a pull-up style diaper. So standing changes can be really helpful. They can be standing, playing with a toy and standing like a spinner. That's one thing. Another option that I love is no, it's not too early to potty train. I've heard some professionals say, not from my field, that like kids can't potty train until, I don't know what they say, like 3, they can't hold it. It's actually not true. So I do something called elimination communication with my kids. And basically, starting at birth, we hold them over the potty and we start learning their cues. So when, like tonight at dinner, my baby looked at my husband and went, "Pop, pop, pop." And I was like, she's got to poop. So we took her to the potty and she pooped. And it's like,
Wow.
so she's 13 months now. It's really cool. And I've learned that it doesn't feel, because some people are like, but are you pushing it? Is it forcing it? And really all it's doing is we're learning their natural rhythms and then giving them the opportunity to void on the toilet. And what we find is that when we're doing it, then they're more likely to wait for that opportunity. So at 14 months, if your baby seems like maybe they're ready or they're showing signs or they're pulling at their diaper or they just seem uncomfortable in a wet diaper, absolutely put them on the potty. And we love the Baby Bjorn potty. It has the high back. She is so comfortable on it. We've used it since birth. And then with that, so that's like her spot where she'll go. And my best advice with that, if you're like, I want to try it, is do it during transition times. So when you first wake up in the morning after the first feed, that's like almost a guaranteed catch. A catch is what you call it. Okay. So we'll put her on the potty and she'll always at least pee. And then before and after meals, before and after naps, before and after like being out on the go. But we don't do all those times. We're busy and we miss things. But when you can do it, and like if they can go, then like they'll probably be more comfortable. It's one less dirty diaper for you. So I say go for it.
I love that. I started researching into elimination communication when my older one was, I don't even remember. It was in the wintertime and he was less than 1. And I was like, we're inside all the time anyway. Let's give this a go. Let's give this a try. And then I got pregnant and I was exhausted and it just like, it was not for us. But the research that I did from it, it's amazing seeing some of these babies, what they can do and learning the cues. And kudos to you for doing it with both kids.
Thank you. It's fun. And I think what I also tell people is like, you don't have to do anything full time. Like, I think when I first learned about it, I was like, how am I going to do it full time? Okay, so we'll keep a potty in the car. And then I learned as we fell into our own rhythm that so we also like cloth diapering. And I was like, I want to do full time. And then I was like, you know what? I can part-time elimination communication and part-time cloth diaper and part-time disposables. Like, it doesn't have to be a hard and fast any of the ways.
Yeah, nothing is all or nothing, and nothing is something you can't change your mind on later. So
yeah, and that's okay. Like, I think sometimes we feel like, oh, we said we're going to do something and we get external pressure of like, are you really going to cloth diaper? I got a lot of that. And so I almost felt like, well, now I need to prove it. Like, we have to cloth diaper.
Right.
And I love cloth diapering, but with our second baby, I was like, I have a lot of laundry to do. Like, we don't do it as much. Now we're doing it more because she's going on the potty more. But yeah, it's like you have to do what works for you. And it's just a cool option to, I think, be aware of.
I love that. And I want to add, for this parent, if you're just out in public and your kid's screaming and like a changing diaper isn't going to work, don't be afraid to just give them your phone and put on Miss Rachel and let them sit there for a minute, because it's not going to do any harm. And you can save some of your sanity for all of the other things that are going on and just make it happen. Like, there's no shame in that.
I agree. Yes, I totally agree. Especially when you're out in public and there's like that heightened sense of like, I don't know, anxiety and nerves and stress. Like, it's okay. My daughter loves, on the back of my phone, I have a little pop socket thingy. And she loves playing with it. And sometimes I'm like, okay, you can play with it. It's okay.
I know the first time I handed my kid my phone to do like a in the back of the van diaper change, one of my friends
Mm.
who had a kid who was, I think, 2 years older than mine, I instantly was like, I don't do this for every diaper change. Like I was so shame. I felt so much shame in it,
Yeah.
but we're all just doing our best and we're all just doing what we can and we're not
Yes.
going to harm our
Yes.
kid. Yeah.
No, it's okay. And I always think too, like, just by worrying and just by caring, like, you're a great
Yes.
mom. You're a great parent. Like, just that extra, like, oh, what are people gonna think? You're doing amazing. Like, just worrying, like, you're such a good parent.
Totally agree, right? I think that's
Yeah.
a really great message that you share a lot too, is that you are the best parent for your kid. I see that
Yes.
you post that and you say that a lot, and it really hits home with a lot of people. I think it's an important message.
Good. Good. I hope so. I hope so. I think there's just so much comparison, especially with social media. And it's like you are the best person for your kid. You're the best parent. You're the best guide. It's just your child was meant to be yours, and you're meant to be their parent. And I think that's just so important to keep in mind.
Agreed. I feel like I could talk to you all day, Blair. I really do.
Same. This
This
is
has
so
been
fun.
such a really great conversation. Can you pitch your social media? Where can people find you and spend more time listening to you and what you have to add?
Yes, yes, yes. So my handle on social media on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, although I'm not very active on TikTok, is birth and balance underscore OT. And on there, you'll find I share all sorts of support for maternal health. So maternal health occupational therapy is what I do. So I share a lot of supports for moms, also for dads. And also I mix in some child development tips, mostly in my stories, and some mindful movement. So you'll be able to learn a lot of helpful tips for parenting, also just support and inspiration. And then I also have a website. It's birthandbalanceot.com. On there, you'll find all my freebies and resources. You can find ways to work with me directly one on one. I have a few services I offer on there. And soon I'm going to have those recorded classes uploaded on there so you can subscribe and have access to all of them. And yeah.
Awesome. So you're a treasure trove of resources here. I'm so glad to be able
Thank
to share
you.
this with people who might be listening. If you'd like to share your story, please reach out to me, boldlittleminds@gmail.com. I would love to share your story with the world. You can find me on social media. I primarily post on Instagram, but I'm also on TikTok, YouTube, Pinterest, all the things at Bold Little Minds. Please be sure to subscribe on whatever channel you're listening to this on and share with your friends. If you could leave a quick rating and review, that goes a long way for helping me reach other moms. It doesn't have to be a long review. You could just write, I liked it. And that would go a long way. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening today. I hope that you've enjoyed it, and we will see you next time.